How's it going, folks? Recently, I've been very intrigued by what Amplify ETFs has to offer, and they do have some new products in the Bitcoin space. They have two new ETFs, and those are BAGY and BITY. So I want to do a quick overview of both of those products and look at their performance and just outline the different yields from them. They have very attractive yields, so I want to look into them right now. Let's jump right into it. All right, guys, first let's look at BT, BITY, which is Amplify's Bitcoin 2% monthly option income ETF. So they're targeting 2% yields per month, which is quite intriguing. It's about 24% annually is their target, okay? And with this ETF, they're looking to focus on both capital appreciation, so asset appreciation and high income, okay? With the annual target of 24% option premium. Of course, this is using options and the covered call strategy to yield farm and to generate income. A portion of the investment is purchased into IBITs. Let's look at their holdings. Let's jump right in there. So yeah, a portion is going to be IBIT, and then they're writing covered calls against IBIT to generate that yield. And you can see so far their annual distribution rate has been 25% effectively. They are fairly new to the market. They've only launched as of April, but their target yield so far, looking at the distributions, nets out to an expected yield of around 25%, which is very, very attractive. Okay, so with this, they have the options writing that they'll do weekly, plus they will hold a portion of Bitcoin on the books in the form of the ETF for the upside. And that's no different than BAGY, which we'll get into in a moment. But also looking at the expense ratio, it's 0.65%, which is actually much more attractive than that of BTCI, which is close to 1%, and more attractive than a lot of the yield max ones, which are above 1%. Another thing to be concerned about is their net assets under management. This only has 15 million net assets under management, so it is very, very new, and the liquidity might be a concern for this. But we'll look at its performance to compare and contrast kind of its early days, what it's doing, and do keep in mind that Bitcoin has been in a bull run. Jumping over to BAGY, let's jump over to BAGY real quick. BAGY seeks to yield 30 to 60% in options premium, so much higher options premium with this, and that's because the majority of what they're going to do is all writing the covered calls, and the price appreciation potential, they say here, the Bitcoin price appreciation potential is up to 5% per week. Okay, so they're looking to harvest the volatility and write those covered call options just like BT is doing, but on the majority of the assets, and really focus in on the income for this, in this case, with only allocating an upwards of potential 5% each week to allow for upside price appreciation. You can see that it's trailing 12-month yield, should they have one year of length of time, is 31% so far. So it's quite attractive in terms of its trajectory from a 31% standpoint. And looking at the payouts, it's been like $1.41, $1.46, $1.49. So quite attractive BAGY distributions per month. Again, it's only been out for a couple months, so these are very, very new ETFs. And you can see the majority of their funds, they're writing the calls against IBIT, which is the Bitcoin ETFs from iShares. And looking at their weekly cover call construction, what are they doing? They're buying Bitcoin long through those ETFs, as I mentioned. They're selling those calls with an out of money call structure, and allowing at least 5% for upside potential. And on a weekly basis, they're going to be rolling the covered calls into new ones to help with ongoing premiums. And they're going to be allocating monthly premiums and monthly allocations, just like a lot of those other cover calls do. So the target annual premium is going to be 30 to 60%. I think 60% is quite high. But if you were a Bitcoin bull and Bitcoin, yields, continues to kind of spiral upwards and rocket upwards, we could see higher than 30% premium income. But I definitely would be monitoring this as a result. And so As well, this ETF does have quite low amount of assets under management, only 12 million, and the expense ratio is quite favorable as well. It's 0.65%. So now let's look at the performance. Okay, guys, so we are here at Seeking Alpha. We're going to do a comparison in terms of price performance and total performance for these assets as compared to BTCI, which is another high income BTC covered call strategy from NEOS. You can see right off the top, NEOS has a lot more assets under management. So, liquidity wise, NEOS is definitely more favorable, but expense ratio, BT and BAGY are definitely more favorable. So looking at price return, and we're going to look at a 1 year standpoint because we really only have 4 or 5 months of runway from BT and BAGY in a year's time from BTCI. You can see that BT and BAGY have done 9% and 6% in the past 4 months, 5 months, whereas BTCI in the past year has done 18%. If we look at 6 months, maybe a little more fair comparison, it's a little more close. So BT has done, has done 9%, BAGY has done 6.8%, BTCI has done 11%. But now let's look at total return. Looking at total return, we can see that BT, and again, these only have 4 months return. They're very, very new, but total return on BT and BAGY have been right around 18% for both. BTCI the past 6 months has been almost 29%. So BTCI is definitely capturing that upside and the price appreciation and the dividend income. BAGY and BT, certainly the dividends have been coming in, but again, we have to keep in mind, April, we kind of had a bear drop and then a really big spike coming into May, June, July. So, BTCI benefited from that, whereas BT and BAGY kind of started, in May, so don't have a lot of runway. But I'm intrigued. I'm definitely intrigued by still the performance. To get 18%, 20% with a income generating asset is still very intriguing for 6 months out of the year. What can they do in a year's time? It remains to be seen, but I think these are ones to at least monitor, maybe not invest in just yet, but maybe monitor. Let me know what you think. Okay, guys, are BT or BAGY on your hit list, on your monitor list? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel, and all the best, guys. Cheers.